Greetings and welcome to Arcana Analysis, where we invite you into the Velvet Room to unlock the secrets of the Arcanum and the bonds they encompass. In this episode, we will be discussing the Hanged Man Arcana. The Hanged Man is the 12th major arcana following Strength and preceding Death, which is a funny concept to follow a card centered around hanging. However, within a tarot reading, the Hanged Man does not draw upon themes of punishment or execution. Rather, the most important aspect of the card is that the Hanged Man has assumed this position of his own free will. Much like the Hermit, this card signals a break from normal cycles, and a period of contemplation, or letting go completely. The core idea here is willfully putting oneself in a painful or disadvantageous situation in order to bring a better future, short-term suffering for long-term happiness. The pose featured in the card art draws on a form of torture, but the halo worn by the man suggests peace and enlightenment. The Hanged Man is not in peril. He has accepted this situation and is making steady progress towards the best solution. It is a card of unconventional wisdom. In the Persona series, the characters aligned with the Hanged Man embody this same wisdom. They are people that surprise us with depth gained through strange experience and difficult circumstances. These characters often begin as quite difficult and imposing people, each struggling to get through a situation that weighs heavily on them while being cast into a lonely position outside normal social circles. They are often stuck between extremes and encounter struggles that face them with a life-changing decision. They cannot escape these choices, but they can rise to meet them, and when they do, the Hanged Man of Persona shine. We see grace and wisdom garnered from non-standard and often shunned lives. The actions they take bear great weight and are not easy, but they reflect incredible contemplation during their time of suffering. The persona aligned under the Hanged Man Arcana are great sufferers of myth and legend. Those who are in transition, face terrible decisions, or are eventually martyred. Reflecting the torment of legends, these persona excel in abilities that focus on survival, such as healing and stat buffs.
Within Persona 3, the Hanged Man Arcana is represented by two individuals. The first, Chidori Yoshino, plays an antagonistic role for much of the game. She is a member of Strega, a group of artificial persona users who oppose members of Cease during the Dark Hour. As an artificial persona user, Chidori must take special suppressants to keep her persona from overwhelming and killing her. As such, Chidori is no stranger to death, seeing it as an inevitability given her condition. Despite her allegiance to Strega, one of the strongest bonds she develops throughout the course of the game is with Junpei Iori. Though she tries to keep her distance, Junpei's boisterous and overzealous personality helps close the gap between them, showing the girl an unfamiliar level of compassion. This selfless level of care is shown even after Chidori's true nature is exposed to the boy, who chooses to visit her daily in the hospital following her initial battle with Cease. Despite her time in recovery, it is revealed that Chidori's persona, Medea, is capable of great feats of healing, on both herself and those around her. Chidori explains that she would even perform self-harm, only for the wounds to heal at the hands of her persona. Though this extension of her will has tried to kill her on several occasions, Chidori feels a deep kinship with Medea, going so far as to call it her only friend. During her recovery, Chidori goes through a period of introspection, and though she may not directly say it, becomes torn between the two groups of persona users. However, Chidori's stay in the hospital is cut short when the other members of Strega arrive to break her out. Even after all the time spent with Junpei, she can't help falling into her old habits, ready to put her life on the line again for Takaya's cause. Yet, during the fight against Cease, when Takaya mortally wounds Junpei, Chidori doesn't hesitate to save him. She sacrifices her own life to save his, in one grand, selfless act to repay the boy for all his kindness. Chidori's persona, Medea, is depicted as a tall figure with long curly blonde hair, a ram's head, and a significant flame motif that surrounds its limbs. In the myth of Jason and the Argonauts, Medea is a princess who fell in love with Jason. Later on, however, Jason chooses to marry another princess, abandoning his current lover. As revenge, Medea sends the princess a coronet and a dress drenched in poison, the two causing the princess's skin to burn. This could potentially explain the flame motif on the persona's body. Another explanation could be Medea's relation to Helios, god of the sun. In myth, Medea is also capable of great feats of healing, explaining Chidori's abilities. Lastly, there is a story about Medea fooling a monarch by performing a false miracle involving a ram, which explains the ram mask worn by the persona. As a bearer of the Hanged Man Arcana, Chidori finds herself stuck between several different worlds, contemplating her place and role within each. Her allegiance to Strega and her love for Junpei led to a great deal of uncertainty within her heart, causing her to make a life-changing decision at the most opportune moment. Chidori is also caught between life and death, her persona trying to kill her on several occasions, yet gifting her incredible healing powers as well. In the end, she finally finds a reason worth living for, and it's the reason she sacrifices herself, making the ultimate final decision. Though she spends much of the game in uncertainty, her choices allow her to move on to greater things, and even help the man she loves advance.
The second bearer of the Hanged Man Arcana in Persona 3 is Maiko Ohashi. She's an elementary school student with an incredibly cheery demeanor, always treating the protagonist with kindness. Behind this, however, is a great deal of inner conflict and anxiety. Maiko's parents are in the midst of getting a divorce, a process that has taken quite a bit out of the young girl. Neither really spends much time with her anymore, and the time they do spend with Maiko is filled with arguments. Much of her social link involves playing and other simple, fun activities to help ease her worries, but ultimately, Maiko feels she is to blame for her parents' separation. She worries that they do not love her anymore, and these fears only grow after Maiko's father hits her in a fit of rage. Between this and the pressure from her mother to succeed in her studies, Maiko resolves to run away from home. Thankfully, her parents come together and work with the protagonist to find her again, showing the girl that while they may be falling out of love, deep down, they do still love her. From there, Maiko is faced with a difficult choice. She must choose which parent she will continue to live with. Despite her age, she makes the mature decision to live with her mother, because while her father is strong enough to live on his own, Maiko's mother will need the support in the years to come. Though at the beginning of her social link, Maiko reacts to this sudden change with emotional outbursts and irrational thinking, she proves that even a child is capable of embodying the careful contemplation and noble self-sacrifice that is indicative of the Hanged Man Arcana. Even when one's entire world seems to be changing, taking the time to fully process this change before moving forward is paramount.
Like many others, Persona 4's Hanged Man, Naoki Konishi, starts off as distant, cold, and a bit on the fringes of society. The first time you meet Naoki, he announces that he not only hates your friend Yosuke, but he also hates you by extension. The player then learns, not by Naoki's own volition, but through the rumor mill, that Naoki is the younger sibling of Saki Konishi, a former student at Yasogami High and the second victim of the Inaba murders. Before you even learn the younger Konishi's name, you already know his situation. He's what's left behind from a terrible, unsolved homicide, and in its wake, everyone treats him with pity or discomfort. People have stopped interacting with Naoki himself, now only viewing him through his sister's bloody legacy. As the player comes to know the boy, they find that he is rather even-tempered and sweet, but with a persistent disconnect from his current situation and surroundings. Naoki is clearly stuck on his sister's death, but not in the grief-stricken way one might imagine. Inaba is a small community where everyone knows his parents, in part because of their shop, so everyone has an opinion on his sister's death, the Konishi family, and him. Naoki finds himself stuck in a limbo, unable to process Saki's death because he is subject to the never-ending torrent of everyone else talking about it to him or talking about him. Housewives out shopping give their condolences or whisper that he's cold for not being torn up, teachers let him show up late and exempt him from homework, and other students become jealous of his treatment or assume he's a slacker. Naoki has been stiffly bound in bubble wrap by the outside world, forced to deal with the loss on everyone's terms but his own. He feels he must accept this to keep from souring the reputation of his family's business. Juness is already a grave competitor, and him causing a scene could be a death sentence. This has turned him into a husk who is starting to feel that nothing matters, while at the same time turning his frustration towards his sister, resenting what she has done to him and his family despite knowing that her murder and the aftermath were far out of her hands. In the protagonist, Naoki finds a confidant, someone to talk to that does not judge him or force their own grief onto him. He takes small steps, first considering dropping out of school to work at his parents' shop, then compromising to stay in school and just help on the weekends. Eventually, he's able to visit Juness, and then the site where Saki's body was discovered. Finally, the protagonist joins him by the river Naoki and his sister played at as children. Here the boy is finally able to cry and truly begin processing the great loss in his life. He recounts the way his sister loved and supported him, and how he knows she wouldn't have wanted to die so young. By the end of his link, Naoki is still far from leaving behind the grief and trauma of Saki's death, but he's finally begun to take the first steps. He stayed in stasis for what felt like a lifetime, sacrificing his own emotions to take on the shared burden of the town, as well as to keep his family strong. But ultimately, Naoki chooses to grieve on his own terms and love his family in his own way, resolving to take on the impossible task of turning the family business into something that can survive Junes, and, in turn, creating a loving and kind legacy for Saki and the rest of the Konishis.
Persona 5's Hanged Man representative comes in the form of Munehisa Iwai, the owner of the airsoft shop Untouchable in Shibuya. This rugged ex-Yakuza offers to supply the protagonist with weapons and equipment in exchange for some assistance with a few shady activities. These activities are outlined in his Confidant, where the protagonist often assists Iwai with special orders of custom replica guns. However, as the Confidant progresses, the protag becomes increasingly involved in Iwai's personal matters, discovering that the man has an adopted son named Kaoru. The boy was dropped into Iwai's hands when he was just a baby, abandoned by his mother out of sheer desperation. Seeing this, Iwai felt compelled to look after the baby, leaving the Yakuza in order to start a better, more stable life for his son. This meant abandoning an old friend, Akimitsu Suda, and the two ending up on very different paths through life. All these years later, Suda is back and he intends on extorting Iwai into filling out a complex custom order for the Yakuza. If he fails to complete it, the truth about Kaoru's mother and Iwai's past in the Yakuza will be revealed to the boy, news that would surely be devastating to someone so innocent. Considering all he wants is a normal life for Kaoru, Iwai goes along with the demands. It's only through the meddling of the Phantom Thieves that this particular situation sees some closure. After changing Suda's heart in the metaverse, he drops the order, finally acting like the old friend that Iwai used to know. With Suda no longer putting the heat on Iwai, a Yakuza underling decides to step in and take advantage of the opportunity, literally taking Kaoru hostage with a knife and using him as ransom for the order of custom guns. It's during this heated exchange that Iwai finally explains the truth to his son. The truth about everything. Though he's initially quite shocked, Kaoru still loves and accepts his father for who he is, and the circumstances of his birth can't change that fact. The situation is quickly de-escalated thanks to a reformed Suda who comes in with the assist at the perfect moment, allowing all parties to leave the situation closer than ever. The choices Iwai faces throughout his Confidant are met with careful deliberation, which is a sign of the calm and collected nature the Hanged Man Arcana embodies. Iwai sacrificed life as he knew it to build a healthy foundation for his son's life, and though there were perhaps more opportune moments to tell his son the truth, Iwai's decision to confess rather than capitulate helped build a stronger bond between father and son. With this new perspective, Iwai shall surely move forward towards a better life for his family.
That concludes our examination of the Hanged Man Arcana. Hanged men are not dealt an easy lot in life. Many struggle and find themselves removed from normal society and comfortable life.
Despite this, the holders of this Arcana embody wisdom, choosing to carefully deliberate and take on burdens that others can't handle.
We hope you've enjoyed your stay with us in the Velvet Room, and we look forward to seeing you again. Until then, we bid you adieu.